Hello! Welcome to a Halloween special we started to talk about months ago, and it's the hut where Baba Yaga lives. If I pronounce her name wrong, I'm so sorry. Want to know a bit more about her? Baba Yaga have had many forms over the last centuries. She originated from Eastern European and Slavic folklore, where she was once seen as more like a goddess connected to the earth and forest. She's still said to have powers connected to earth and forest, but also day and night, life and death. In some tales, she comes in a different form as three women, but she is mostly known as a frightening witch nowadays. Her name have had some variations as well. She is a complicated entity. She will help you if you behave, but a nasty fate awaits if you don't. She rides around in a giant mortar and pestle. Her house is described as a hut spinning on big chicken legs, and that's where we got her inspiration from.
Hello here! I didn't know Baba Yaga until Numix mentioned it, so I went to read some things about her and it was perfect for an Halloween build. We went for swamps as a decor for the hut to walk in. Swamps are now easier to do in The Sims since we have the pond tool. It was still a bit tricky because it needed things to make it interesting and not too flat. We had some different tries with the terrain relief and ended with swamps that are not flat at all. We also needed to add a lot of points of interest outside the house and make them a bit hidden. So it was pretty long time with the terrain tool and the terrain paint to make it smooth and also to make the plants stick to the ground. Once again, the tool mode was our friend for that, knowing that when you've got hills and different of heights, you won't be able to place the plants and objects correctly on the ground. If you come to visit the build, you will find some hidden victims of the witch a bit everywhere. Maybe just some part of them, maybe only their toys, their boats. There are also some magical zones, most of them are hidden, and you really need to have a closer look to find them. I began with making the base of the terrain, and then Numix did the house. I loved the shape so much, and the roof was perfect for it. The interior of the house has a lot of small stuff too that you need to discover, and I suggest you beware of the tower. Maybe don't come too close to the cage too, because who knows what could happen if you ever get trapped. For a while, we had a floating creepy house and swarms downstairs. The chicken legs Sarah did are awesome. I never thought we would end up with something like it, and I'm so happy for that.
So this video has been a long time in coming. Halloween is our favorite holiday, and we've been talking about doing Halloween builds since we first started the channel. Actually, we started building together a year ago. Our first collab together was a team challenge on the Kate Emerald Discord server, where we made witch sonas, and then a huge magic school with dorms and classrooms and a library. It's funny that we did a floating build for this because that build was floating on clouds and accessible via the portals from Realm of Magic. That was my first time collaborating with a group, and we worked together so well. Of course, we had others we were working with, and everyone put their own flair and style into it. And I streamed a lot with a group which was called the Amethyst Angels, thus the purple wings in our logo. It was also my first big project with Tool. I used it a bit in the Kate Emerald Shell Challenge that I'd done before this, but enlarging and moving those cloud lights was a challenge, especially because they are a ceiling light and had a pole attached. I thought I'd never have to use those cloud lights again, but surprised, I used a ton of them in our candy house build. I also occasionally use them as pillow fluff when I want to make something look like it's ripped and some stuffing has come out of something. You have to disable the light itself so it doesn't turn on in live mode, but I didn't think I'd use them on a large scale again. We all have learned so much as builders in the last year, and I look forward to learning more and growing together. Everyone thought I was so good at Tool last year, but I'm leaps and bounds beyond where I was, and I'm remembering how I did things and how much easier I could have done them. But learning is a process, and any of you watching this thinking you could never do something like this, trust the process. Try something new that you've seen in a video tutorial or video you watched. Download a build and take something apart. Don't try to compare yourself to the end result of what someone else has done. They also went through their own learning process and didn't start out as good as they are. They learned from doing and making mistakes and trial and error. They saw what other people did and learned from them. Remember, NewMixV and I build together, and the end result is something that we could not do alone. We brainstorm ideas together and consult one another and ask how something looks, or we pass off to the others when we're stuck or need one of the others to do something. It's a lot different than working alone, so give yourself some room to learn and don't expect a polished end result. We only get that because of teamwork. All three of us have a ton of unfinished or half-finished builds that we meant to come back to, and are pretty terrible. Maybe one day we'll do another collab with another builder and swap builds we never finished. I get really emotional thinking, what if one of us had been put on another team? Or what if one of us hadn't joined Kate Emerald's Discord? We'd have never met. Of course, we made friends with members of the other teams, and we did do builds with them for non-competition things, but our team just worked so well together from the start, and the three of us immediately jumped in and got organized. V was assigned the head of the team, but me and Noom asserted ourselves. Since then, we have talked literally every day, usually all day every day, until it gets late in Europe. I have a regular sleep-wake circadian rhythm, so I'm often awake at 4 a.m. my time, which is 10 a.m. their time. So we usually have a chat in the morning, and then I get sleepy around 11-ish, which is 5 their time. So they tend to have prime conversation time, and I wake up with like 85 unread messages and catch up with them in the evening. They know my schedule so well that Noom will often check on me if I'm not napping at my normal time, or V will ask me why I'm still awake. We talk about everything from our pets to our partners and how our health is doing. They've become my best friends, and they know me better than even some people I've known in real life for years. We came into each other's lives during the pandemic and really helped each other get through it. It was really interesting to see how each country tackled it and how they continue to approach it. We often talk about how our countries differ in many ways and how we do things, like some things are totally okay in one country but illegal in one of theirs, and vice versa. I was going out of town for a little less than a week and preparing my cats to make sure they had enough food and water and litter. My neighbor was given a key. They were both really surprised because there is like a legal amount of time that a pet can be left alone. I think we have that for dogs because, of course, they have to go outside to potty and need exercise and socialization. But cats are often fine for a week if their litter is cleaned a couple of times and you have someone check in on them, especially if there's more than one cat. They have each other to snuggle and chase around. Anyway, we talk a lot about those things, and we have a lot in common, so we never run out of things to say to each other. And occasionally, we even talk about our builds and what we're doing to them. This build was interesting because I came in so late into the build, like late. It got to the point where they were like, okay, there's nothing else I can do, we need you. It's not like I wasn't interested in the build, but I was putting finishing touches on another build and trying to do tool stuff for a save file for Emerald Cove, which got corrupted because I tried to put a skating rink off lot and it disappeared. I had to start all over, and I'm still trying to recreate what I did there. We're at another point in the current build we're working on where they're like, okay, Sarah, we need you. So I need to record this voiceover, finish the save file, tool stuff, and take a look at that build. It was hard to see where things could be added to this build because it was so good already. But it seemed like a cute little cottage similar to how our candy house was, but less cutesy. It needed to have more of a creep factor and much more clutter. I managed to add shelves everywhere with junk and creepy stuff on it, which Bee added to brilliantly, and made a creepy stained bed for Baba Yaga. I still think the bathroom is too chic, but it's a bathroom, so I'm not too worried about it. Because Baba Yaga's house traditionally has chicken legs, I was set to the task of making the chicken legs, and I thought this piece of driftwood would be perfect to make them. So I went to a different lot and I set to make the chicken legs. You'll see that I put a pole in the middle so that I could make it straight up, and that way I was able to take that section and manipulate it and make sure that it was straight in other places. So when I rotated it, that section would be exactly straight. It's helpful because if it's not straight, then things will be off and it's just always a mess. The chicken legs did end up being a little bit too long and tall for how tall the house was. So once I did put them into the build, I did have to adjust them a little bit. So you'll see once I actually get to the build, I put it on a larger lot, adjust the legs, put the legs in, and then I moved the lot back onto a smaller lot again. It's a little confusing, but it was a lot easier to do it that way than try to adjust the legs and then place them on the lot and then adjust the legs again. I just needed everything to be in the same place, but I didn't want it to be around where everything else was because it could affect the things around it or above it or next to it, and it was too much. So I did it that way. I wanted one of the legs to look like it was in the process of walking or about to claw something. So I actually looked online at the structure of chicken bones and feet, and I looked at videos of chickens walking. I know it was probably a little bit too much for what it was, but I just felt like it needed to be somewhat realistic. Also, there was the thing about how it was going to attach to the house. So I found this pile of bones and feathers and I copied it in sort of a sphere, not really a sphere, like a cone, and I put that at the top, which ended up being a little bit problematic for the build because it stuck through it was actually really super fun to make, and I really love a challenge where I can use tool to create something that I wouldn't have otherwise thought of. And I was super happy that this piece of driftwood could be rotated because some items in the debug menu cannot be rotated, and it's really disappointing when you can't do that. Here I'm putting some more stuff on the shelves up in the tower. I felt like she should have a lot of potions and things up there, so I end up enlarging them and just kind of stuffing the shelves full of things. And because I'm a crazy person, of course, I needed them not all to be facing the same exact way, so I rotated some of them so that they wouldn't be completely all facing forward, but they would face forward enough that she'd be able to tell what was in them. It's hard to adjust where things are with Tool in kind of an octagonal room or even diagonally, because obviously things are not going to go exactly where you think they're going to go all the time unless you're super good at math, which I am not. But you can kind of use the gravity tool thing. If you take off the snap to terrain, then the object will not drag towards the ground. It will stay at its level, so you can actually drag something and have it stay at the same height that it had been at. Here I am being a crazy person, and I am trying to make the bottom part of the house not look like it's white, because for some reason when you're looking up at a ceiling it's always white, and because this is a floating house I did not want it to look like that, so I took a palette and a bunch of boards and I put that on there. If you hear purring, it's because my kitten is sitting right on my microphone. Do you need to be in the video, kitten? Here I decided that some of these herb packets or vegetable packets needed to be in a little basket, so I rotated them and put them in a basket and then put them onto a shelf. I think I put one on the outside as well on the little gardening table, and I may have also added one on the shelf in the kitchen as well. I just was thinking about like what kind of stuff would an ancient witch have in her house, and of course she would want to have some herb packets. Even if it wasn't something that she bought, she could make it herself. I also put a lot of these baskets with other things elsewhere in the house, and I think I made them colorful at first, but then I think I ended up changing them all to sort of a brown or a light brown. and I decided this bowl of fruit was a little bit too cute. So I put some eyeballs and some meat cubes onto it. And here I am adjusting the bedroom. I guess I didn't record when I put the stains onto the bed, but I just rotated some of the floor stains or the wall stains, and then I lowered them to where it looked like it was actually straight on the bed. And then the books that I ended up putting onto this chest at the end of the bed, I chose very methodically. So if you download the build, definitely look at which tomes are on there, because I found them kind of amusing. And then here I am rearranging the house, because of course I did. And then I decided that there needed to be shelves everywhere behind the couch and on the walls, and just filled with things. Luckily, V took the build after me and ended up putting a bunch of stuff onto the shelves, so I didn't have to think of everything on them, and she thinks a lot differently than me, so I really like the things that she put on the shelves. And Numix admitted to me at this point that she tends to just put things in the build and then trust that I will adjust them. And I actually love that, because I'll see something that looks like it's a little disproportional and I will fix it to where I think it looks good. And this little 4-poster bed is something that I have done multiple times. And it is made out of an object called 90 degrees. It's spelled Ninety. And it just is an L-shaped object, which is really good to make pretty much anything that you need an L-shaped object for. If you hear anything in the background, I have a new kitten, and he is very playful, and he alternately loves to play and then sit right on my face. So he has frequently, while I've been recording this, came and disconnected my microphone, or started purring into the microphone,